Today, we're here at Battery Street Jeans in Burlington, Vermont. Battery Street Jeans is a locally owned and run thrift and upcycle store that not only showcases local art, but also sells local clothing, and they'll buy any clothing off of you. Thrifting is this sort of phenomenon where people will send in their old clothing so that other people can repurchase them. It's a recycling of clothing, and it's something that we're here to talk about today, as well as the unsustainable clothing market. So nowadays, if you were to go buy a t-shirt or another piece of clothing that's made out of cotton, there's a high chance that that cotton comes from unsustainable farming. A lot of countries like Benin, 80% of their export is from cotton, and that wouldn't be so much of a problem if it wasn't that farmers aren't paid very many wages for that. It's very unsafe, harmful to the environment, as well as being generally unsustainable.
So to kind of play off what Noah was saying, these garments are being produced regardless of whether people are in super high demand for them, and to kind of cut costs and make way for a higher profit margin, I think large companies will tend to use more synthetic materials to produce clothing. And in retrospect, really every single time you buy a piece of renewable clothing or just recycled fabric, you are really working towards big companies cutting down on producing as much clothing because you're not buying as much clothing directly from the big brands.
Thrift shopping's really cool because a lot of times if someone's not using a piece of clothing anymore and they give it to a place like this, it ends up in this big web of thrift stores where people who tend to go thrift shopping also tend to give their clothing back. So if they don't need it anymore, it kind of gets back in the stream. You can find some really cool items because of this, and a lot of the times you could be surprised. You could find something at retail could be a couple hundred for something under 60 bucks. Really, it depends on how often you look, where you look, what you know you want, and all that. All this that I'm wearing right now, I got here at Battery Street Jeans at one point, and I've loved it so far, and it's some of them make great conversation pieces. So beyond the environmental effects, there's also some good cultural positive aspects to it as well.
To counter the idea that thrift shopping would kind of blow things out of the water and be 100% beneficial for all parties involved, there's a lot of countries like China that kind of rely on this low-cost, low-wage production of garments and clothing. And really, if we were to all start thrift shopping, then those economies would kind of go into the dumps and go overboard, just because all of a sudden there would be no demand for clothing that's sold to large companies and then distributed to retail stores. But something interesting is that if people are interested in kind of like a brand, a good place for them to go is a thrift shop, because they can still kind of be fashion conscious and buy something from a brand that they like, but it's not going directly to the horse's mouth as much as wearing a design you like, but it's recycled and they're not necessarily profiting off of something that they don't need to profit off of.